On Sunday, March 1st, 2024, at least 9 people injured after shooter opens fire during birthday celebration at music venue on Sunday, March. The police were notified of multiple shots fired at the music venue Riverfront Live. 9 people were shot in the incident. Fox 19 Cincinnati reported, citing Cincinnati Police Interim Chief Adam Henney. A birthday celebration was taking place at the venue when the shooting occurred. An altercation occurred in the celebrations that may have been linked to the shooting. And that the public is no longer in danger, no suspects have been publicly identified at this time. The river is a mirror of the night. It moves without sound. In the quiet hours of early March, the Ohio River carries a weight that feels like velvet against the shore. If you were to stand along the dark industrial stretch of Kellogg Avenue at 1 o'clock in the morning, you would see the city lights flickering in the distance, casting long, amber reflections across the silken texture of the water. The air in Cincinnati during this transition from winter to spring is heavy with a specific kind of damp humidity. It is a cool mist that clings to the historic brickwork of the city and settles over the valley like a heavy, protective blanket. At this hour, the world feels smaller and more intimate. You might hear the distant, low-frequency hum of a barge navigating toward the locks, or the rhythmic, hypnotic lap of water against the silt-heavy banks. It is a time when the pulse of the city slows down to a crawl. The sharp edges of the day are softened by the darkness and the fog. I know that you are tired. I know that the world can feel loud and demanding during the daylight hours. But here, in this space we have created together, those demands no longer exist. You are safe. You are comfortable. You are exactly where you need to be. As we begin our journey tonight, I want you to focus on the simple rhythm of your breathing. Imagine the cool, damp air of the riverfront entering your lungs, and as you exhale, feel the lingering tension leaving your shoulders, your neck, and your hands. We are going to travel together to Kellogg Avenue. It is a long stretch of road that follows the deep curve of the water. The trees there are still bare from the winter chill, their branches reaching out like lace against the gray sky. The streetlights cast isolated pools of light onto the asphalt, creating a path through the shadows. Tonight, we talk about a night that began with the vibrant energy of music and celebration. We talk about Riverfront Live, a venue that has seen thousands of faces and heard countless melodies echoing off its walls. But more importantly, we talk about the resilience of those who were there. We talk about a young woman leaving a bathroom, unaware that her life was about to tilt on its axis. And we talk about the sanctuary she found in the most mundane of places. This is not a story of fear. This is a story of how we find our way back to safety when the world briefly feels uncertain. The river keeps moving, the night keeps turning, and you are here, listening, drifting, and secure. We must acknowledge that while tonight's story involves a moment of sudden chaos, the resolution is one of survival and recovery. All 9 individuals who were affected that night are expected to heal. They are moving forward just as the river moves. Knowing this allows you to let the details wash over you like a slow-moving tide. You can relax, because the ending is already written in the language of resilience. The geography of the Ohio River is essential to understanding the atmosphere of this night. In early March, the fog often rises from the water in thick, slow-moving ribbons. This fog creates what locals might call a sonic void. It dampens the sound of distant traffic and muffles the noise of the city, making everything feel as though it is happening inside a glass jar. On the night of February 28th, leading into March 1st, this silence was the backdrop for a celebration. Kellogg Avenue is an industrial corridor, a place of warehouses and open lots that feels removed from the frantic pace of downtown. It is a place where the silence is usually absolute. As you settle deeper into your bed, imagine the texture of that night. The ground was cold. The air was still. The river was a dark, silken presence just beyond the trees. We are moving toward the lights of the venue now, where a birthday party is reaching its peak. But we carry with us the stillness of the water. We carry the knowledge that safety is always within reach, even when it takes the form of a brightly lit convenience store across the street. Let the sounds of my voice be your guide through the mist. There is no urgency here. There is only the steady, rhythmic progression of the story. You are in a safe container. The waking world is fading away, and the quiet history of Kellogg Avenue is waiting to be told. We are watching the distant lights flicker, secure in the knowledge that the night eventually gives way to the morning. The river continues its long, indifferent journey, and we begin ours. Stay here in the stillness. Feel the weight of the blanket. We are ready to look closer at the architecture of the night. The building at 4343 Kellogg Avenue sits like a low, heavy anchor in the industrial landscape of Cincinnati. It is a structure that understands the history of the river, built with the kind of permanence that only steel and concrete can provide. To reach the venue, one must drive along the winding path of the Ohio, where the trees stand like skeletal sentries against the dark winter sky. The asphalt of the parking lot is often cool and damp, reflecting the amber glow of the high-pressure sodium lamps that hum quietly in the night air. There is a specific sound to a car door closing in this part of the city. It is a solitary, hollow thud that is immediately swallowed by the vastness of the river valley. As the patrons arrived on that Saturday night, they stepped out into a world that felt both familiar and distant. The air was crisp, the kind of cold that pinches the skin and reminds you of your own breathing. The security ritual began long before anyone reached the dance floor. It is a process of surrender and verification, a slow-moving cue where the outside world is methodically stripped away. Imagine the sensation of standing in that line. Your boots crunch on the fine gray gravel that has migrated from the edges of the lot onto the sidewalk. You can see your own breath blooming in front of you, a pale white mist that vanishes as quickly as it appears. The line moves with a rhythmic, predictable cadence. Step, wait, breathe. Step, wait, breathe. This is the first layer of the safe container. It is the boundary where the chaos of the open road is exchanged for the order of the establishment. The steel fences surrounding the property are tall and cold to the touch, their chain link patterns creating a geometric filter through which the distant lights of the city are viewed. When you reach the front of the line, the transition becomes tactile. The security guards stand as the gatekeepers of this temporary sanctuary. They are dressed in dark, functional clothing that absorbs the light around them. On this night, the process was thorough. There is a clinical nature to a professional pat-down. You feel the firm, rhythmic pressure of gloved hands moving along your sides, checking the waistband of your jeans, ensuring that the rules of the house are being respected. The gloves are often made of black nitrile, making a soft, sliding sound against the fabric of a coat. It is a sensory reminder that you are being looked after. You are being vetted. The metal detector wand passes over you with a low electronic hum, a digital whisper that confirms your compliance with the safety of the group. Then comes the exchange of currency. To enter Riverfront Live on a night like this, the cost was $50 or $60. Think about the physical reality of a $50 bill. It has a specific weight and a unique fibrous texture. The paper is a blend of cotton and linen designed to withstand the passage of thousands of hands. As you pull it from your wallet, you feel the slight crinkle of the note, the raised ink of the engraving catching against your thumb. Handing it over is a significant gesture. It is an investment in the night ahead. In return, you receive a wristband, a thin strip of synthetic material that is cinched tight around your arm. The plastic teeth of the closure click into place, a permanent marker that you belong here. This wristband is more than an entry pass. It is a symbol of the social contract. You have paid for the music, the atmosphere, and the unspoken promise that within these walls, the world is predictable. Angel Potts' daughter was one of many who moved through this ritual. She was 25 years old, an age where the world feels both expansive and within reach. She had chosen her outfit with the care of someone who values the ritual of a night out. Perhaps there was a specific perfume she wore, a scent of vanilla or sandalwood that lingered in the cool air of the foyer. She was there for a friend's birthday, a celebration that acted as the North Star for her evening. A birthday party is a shared history, a gathering of people who have navigated the years together. As she stepped through the final set of doors, the transition was absolute. The cold, silent air of Kellogg Avenue was replaced by a wall of warmth and sound. The interior of Riverfront Live is a cavern of sensory density. The air is thick with the collective energy of hundreds of people. It carries the faint, sweet scent of mixed drinks and the metallic tang of the amplifiers. But the most dominant feature is the vibration. Before you hear the music, you feel it in the soles of your shoes. The bass frequencies travel through the heavy floorboards, a rhythmic pulse that synchronizes with the beating of your own heart. It is a low-frequency hum that settles in your chest, a physical manifestation of the music that anchors you to the room. The lighting is deliberate, a series of deep blues and vibrant purples that carve the darkness into manageable shapes. The shadows are long and soft, blurring the edges of the crowd and creating a sense of intimate anonymity. At 25, Angel's daughter was a veteran of this environment. She knew how to navigate the currents of a crowded room, how to move between the pockets of conversation and the open space of the dance floor. The age restriction of 16 and over gave the venue a specific demographic weight. It was a place for those who were transitioning into adulthood, a space where the energy was high, but the structure was firm. The security guards remained visible, positioned at the corners of the room like silent statues. Their presence was a constant, a visual anchor that reinforced the feeling of frisked safety. You could look up from the music and see the steady, watchful gaze of the staff, and in that moment, The $50 entry fee felt like a bargain. The birthday celebration was centered around the energy of DJ Fresh. The music he played was the thread that bound everyone together. Imagine the DJ booth, elevated above the floor, a cockpit of glowing buttons and spinning platters. The light from the screens reflected off the DJ's face as he curated the heartbeat of the room. Every transition between songs was a subtle shift in the atmosphere, a new wave of energy that rippled through the crowd. Friends leaned in close to one another to speak, their voices muffled by the sheer volume of the sound. Laughter was visible rather than audible, seen in the tilt of a head or the brightness of a smile under the strobe lights. Angel's daughter moved through this landscape with a sense of belonging. She was surrounded by the familiar faces of her friends, their shared history providing a secondary layer of protection. They were a small island of celebration in the middle of a larger sea. The geography of the venue became a map of their joy. The bar where they ordered drinks, the edge of the stage where the music was loudest, and the hallway leading back toward the restrooms. These were the landmarks of their night. Everything felt permanent. Everything felt secure. The thick walls of the building acted as a soundproof barrier, keeping the silence of the Ohio River at bay. Inside, there was only the heat, the light, and the steady, driving rhythm of the party. We must appreciate the mundane beauty of this moment. It is the beauty of a night that is going exactly as planned. There is a profound comfort in the expected. When we enter a space like Riverfront Live, we are seeking a temporary escape from the complexities of our daily lives. We want to be part of the collective we. We want to lose ourselves in the vibration of the bass and the shared movement of the crowd. Angel's daughter was doing exactly that. She was living in the present tense, her mind focused on the celebration and the warmth of her friends. She did not know that the safe container was soon to be tested. She only knew that the music was good, the room was warm, and she was exactly where she was supposed to be. As the clock moved toward midnight, the energy reached its plateau. This is the time of night when the room feels most alive. The initial awkwardness of the evening has long since evaporated, replaced by a fluid, effortless momentum. The air is at its warmest, a humid, human heat that speaks of life and movement. You can see the condensation forming on the cold surfaces of the glasses at the bar, the small droplets of water tracing paths through the frost. The smell of the river is a distant memory, replaced by the electric ozone of the stage lights. In this space, time is not measured by minutes, but by the length of the set list. We stay in this moment of anticipatory comfort for a while. We feel the steady pulse of the room. We see the light reflecting off the wristbands of the patrons, 100 small signals of safety. We watch Angel's daughter as she laughs with a friend, her face illuminated by a passing flash of blue light. She is the embodiment of the night's promise. She is the reason the fences were built and the security was hired. She is the heart of the celebration. And as we watch her, we are reminded of our own nights of joy, our own moments of feeling protected within the walls of a shared experience. The river continues to flow outside, cold and indifferent, but inside, the world is bright and full of song. The architecture of the venue is more than just steel and wood. It is an architecture of trust. Every person who paid their fee and walked through the door did so with the belief that the rules would hold. They trusted the pat-downs. They trusted the guards. They trusted the fences. This trust is the foundation upon which the entire evening was built. It is what allowed them to close their eyes and move to the music. It is what allowed them to step away from their phones and engage with the people standing next to them. It is a fragile, beautiful thing, this collective agreement to be safe together. Angel's daughter took a breath of the warm, heavy air. She felt the vibration in her feet, a steady reminder of the music's power. The night was at its peak, and the transition into the early hours of March 1st was beginning. The world outside Kellogg Avenue was asleep, but inside, the party was a sun that refused to set. We hold on to this image, the warmth, the safety, the music, as the narrative begins to shift. We remember the feeling of the wristband and the sound of the car door. We remember the $50 bill and the black nitrile gloves. These are the anchors of our story, the mundane details that make the resilience of the survivors so much more profound. The night is still young, the music is still playing, and for now, the safe container remains unbroken. The floorboards of Riverfront Live have absorbed the echoes of countless nights. They are worn smooth in places, a physical record of the thousands of feet that have moved across them. If these boards could speak, they would tell stories of joy, of first meetings, and of the simple pleasure of being part of a crowd. On this night, they were supporting the weight of a birthday celebration, a ritual as old as time itself. The music of DJ Fresh was the latest chapter in that long history. The speakers, suspended from the ceiling like heavy, dark fruit, cast their sound downward, bathing the room in a constant stream of audio energy. As we linger in this space, we can begin to appreciate the clinical order that underlies the chaos of a party. The staff move with a practiced efficiency. The bartenders reach for bottles with muscle memory, their hands moving in a blur of motion. The security guards communicate with subtle nods and glances, a silent language of oversight. Everything is in its place. The exits are marked with glowing red signs, a constant, quiet reminder of the way back to the world outside. These signs are the only things that don't change color with the music. They are the steady, unblinking eyes of the building, ensuring that even in the height of the celebration, the path to safety is always visible. Angel's daughter was part of this order. She was a single thread in a vast, vibrant tapestry. Her presence added to the density of the room, her laughter contributing to the collective sound of the night. She was a 25-year-old woman in Cincinnati, enjoying the fruits of her independence, secured by the walls of a venue that had promised to protect her. The river was just a few hundred yards away, moving silently toward the west. But in here, the only movement that mattered was the rhythm of the dance floor. The transition from February to March is often a time of change, a slow awakening from the slumber of winter. On this night, that change was reflected in the energy of the crowd. There was an urgency to the celebration, a desire to make the most of the weekend before the routine of Monday returned. The entry fee, the frisking, the cold walk from the car, all of it was a small price to pay for this feeling of communal warmth. We stay here, in the heart of the music, feeling the bass in our chests and the heat of the room on our skin. We are safe, we are comfortable, and we are ready to follow the story as the night begins its final, unexpected turn. To understand the night of March 1st, one must look at the digital echoes left behind on social media. DJ Fresh, a staple of the local music scene, had posted to Instagram earlier that week. He invited the city to a birthday celebration that promised to be a highlight of the weekend. The post was a digital flyer, a beacon for those looking to escape the routine of the work week. It scheduled the start for 10 p.m. on Saturday, February 28th. In the hours leading up to the event, phones across Cincinnati lit up with messages. Friends coordinated outfits and group chats. They arranged rides and shared the anticipation that only a large-scale party can provide. We can imagine the soft glow of those screens in darkened bedrooms, the blue light reflecting off the faces of young people as they prepared for a night of music. The digital world is often loud, but the physical world at Riverfront Live began with a slow, rhythmic buildup. As the clock struck 10, the doors opened to the cool, damp night air. The first few hours of any large event are a study in slow-motion expansion. At first, the room is too large for the people inside it. You can hear the individual sounds of footsteps on the polished floor. You can hear the clinking of ice being poured into plastic cups at the bar. But as 11 p.m. passes and midnight approaches, the room begins to fill. The information density of the space increases. Every new arrival brings a new story and a new energy. By midnight, the venue was a sea of movement. The air grew warm with the breath of hundreds of people. The scent of expensive cologne and cocoa butter mingled with the faint, metallic smell of the industrial cooling system. There is a specific kind of intimacy found in a crowd of strangers celebrating a single life. Even if you did not know the person whose birthday it was, you were part of the collective. We were there to dance. We were there to forget the cold wind of the Ohio River Valley. We were there to be part of something larger than ourselves. The music provided the heartbeat, a steady, thumping rhythm that synchronized the breathing of the crowd. Angel's daughter was part of this rhythm. She was a 25-year-old woman enjoying the peak of her youth. She was surrounded by the safety of her peers. She did not know that 15 minutes of tension were simmering in a corner of the room. But for now, that did not matter. The lights were low, the music was loud, and the night felt infinite. We must remember her in this moment as a participant in a night of joy. In every story of a sudden shift, there is a period of time that feels elongated. It is a stall in the narrative where the outcome is decided, but not yet enacted. At Riverfront Live, this stall lasted approximately 15 minutes. According to a witness who spoke with local reporters, the atmosphere of the party was first punctured not by a sound, but by a sight. In the middle of the celebration, an altercation broke out. It involved 4 to 5 people. It was a small knot of friction in a room full of fluid movement. The witness described seeing a man being knocked unconscious. He fell to the floor, a sudden static shape amidst the dancing feet. In a standard narrative, this would be the climax. But in our journey tonight, we look at the silence that follows. For 15 minutes, this man lay on the floor. For 15 minutes, the people around him had to decide how to react. Some likely did not even notice. The music and lights acted as a veil over the incident. Others stood back, creating a small circle of empty space. It was a void in the middle of the party. Think about the duration of 15 minutes. It is long enough to brew a pot of tea. It is long enough to listen to 3 or 4 songs. It is long enough for the brain to convince itself that the danger has passed. The witness watched as the tension seemed to dissipate, or at least transform into something else. But in the background, near the rear of the venue, 3 figures were moving. They were not part of the dancing crowd. They were moving with a different purpose and a different cadence. They came from the back of the club, moving through the shadows that the stage lights could not reach. The safe container of the venue was about to be breached. But in that 15-minute lull, there was a strange, heavy peace. It was the kind of peace that exists in the eye of a storm. We stay in that lull for a moment, feeling the weight of the air before the rhythm changes forever. There is a specific kind of quiet that exists in the restrooms of loud music venues. It is a muffled, underwater sound. The bass of the music becomes a dull thud against the walls. The high notes disappear entirely. For Angel Potts's daughter, this was the last moment of true normalcy. She had stepped away from the birthday celebration, moving down a hallway to the bathroom. Imagine the cool, fluorescent light of that space. The sound of water splashing into a ceramic sink was rhythmic and steady. There was the mundane, repetitive action of checking one's reflection in the mirror. She might have smoothed a strand of hair or adjusted a piece of clothing. In this room, she was just a young woman on a Saturday night. She was safe. She was within the walls of an establishment she had paid to enter. She was protected by the rules of the house. As she turned off the faucet and reached for a paper towel, the world outside the door was still defined by the music and the laughter of her friends. She opened the door to the hallway. She stepped back into the information density of the club. She was walking behind a few other people, a small procession of patrons returning to the party. It was at this exact moment that the first gunshots rang out. She did not see the shooters. She only heard the change in the air. It was a staccato start to a new reality. But as we follow her in this moment, we must remember that she survives. She is moving toward the door. She is moving toward the fence. She is moving toward the sanctuary of the night. The fear she felt was real, but it was a temporary state. We watch her now, not with panic, but with the steady observation of a narrator who knows the ending. She dropped down, her instincts taking over. In the chaos of the hallway, she found the strength to run. The floor was cold under her hands for a brief second before she pushed off. She moved with a clarity that only comes when the mundane world falls away. She was no longer a guest at a party. She was a person seeking the light. At approximately 1 a.m., the geography of Riverfront Live shifted from a place of celebration to a place of investigation. According to the Cincinnati police, 3 individuals emerged from the rear of the venue. They did not announce themselves. They did not engage in the altercation that had occurred 15 minutes prior. They simply began to fire. In the clinical language of a police report, this is described as multiple shots fired. In our monotone journey, we describe it as a sudden, sharp punctuation in the night's rhythm. 9 people were struck. 9 individuals who had been part of the collective were suddenly separated by the reality of physical injury. However, we must focus on the medical resolution. All 9 victims sustained non-life-threatening injuries. They were destined to recover. They were destined to return to their families. The police arrived at 4343 Kellogg Avenue almost immediately after the calls began to flood the dispatch center. Interim Chief Adam Henney noted the speed of the response. The scene was one of rapid, organized movement. While the shooters fled out the same way they had entered, disappearing into the dark industrial corridors of the riverfront, the police were establishing a new, safe container. They cordoned off the area with yellow tape that flickered in the strobe lights of the patrol cars. They began the procedural loop of collecting evidence and interviewing witnesses. The Cincinnati police would later state that this was an isolated incident and that the public was no longer in danger. This phrase, "no longer in danger," is a linguistic anchor for us. It signals to the brain that the disruption has ended. The event was a sharp spike on a graph, but the line was already beginning to flatten. The investigation was beginning. It was a slow, methodical process that would take days and weeks. But the immediate threat had dissolved into the Cincinnati night. The sirens provided a new music for the street, a signal that help had arrived and order was being restored. When the shooting began, Angel's daughter did not wait for instructions. Her body made the decision for her. She ran toward the door, her footsteps echoing the urgency of the moment. She reached the perimeter of the Riverfront Live property. The steel fence stood as a final barrier between the chaos of the venue and the silence of Kellogg Avenue. She jumped the fence. It was a feat of adrenaline and survival. She found herself on the open road. Across the street sat a United Dairy Farmers store. For those who live in the Midwest, the UDF is a symbol of the everyday. It is a place of bright, fluorescent lights and checkered floors. It has the comforting, clinical smell of refrigerated dairy and fresh coffee. To Angel's daughter, this store was a lighthouse. She ran toward it, leaving the dark, pulsing energy of the riverfront behind. Imagine her entering the store. The bell above the door chimed a simple, mundane greeting. The contrast was absolute. Inside the UDF, people were buying milk. They were paying for gas. They were living in a world where the only concern was the price of a gallon of ice cream. This is the release mechanism of our story. As she stood in the aisles of the convenience store, the information density of the trauma began to dissipate. She was safe. She was surrounded by the artifacts of normal life. She saw the rows of colorful chip bags and the condensation on the glass doors of the soda coolers. The bright yellow and blue branding of the store acted as a visual sedative. Her mother, Angel, would later recount this escape with a mixture of anger and profound relief. Her daughter had been injured, but she was standing. She was in a place where help could reach her. The UDF, with its rows of snacks and its quiet late-night staff, became a temporary sanctuary. It was a bridge between the nightmarish discovery at the club and the clinical healing of the hospital. We stay here in the light of the store for a moment. We feel the heartbeat slow down as the sirens begin to wail in the distance, signaling that the world is being put back together. The transition from the riverfront to the hospital is a journey of increasing order. As the 9 victims were identified and stabilized, they were moved into the care of Cincinnati's medical infrastructure. Some were taken to the University of Cincinnati Medical Center. Others were taken to Good Samaritan Hospital. These are names that carry a weight of authority and trust. Imagine the interior of the ambulance. It is a small, brightly lit room that moves through the night. The sound of the siren is not a warning to those inside, but a promise. It says that the way is being cleared for you. Inside, the paramedics move with a monotone cadence. Their voices are steady and calm as they check vitals and provide the first layers of comfort. Angel's daughter was among those being cared for. Her journey to the UDF had served as the first step in her recovery. At the hospitals, the de-escalation curve continues. The emergency rooms are places of intense focus, but for the patient, they are places of surrender. You lie on a gurney with white, crisp sheets. You listen to the rhythmic beep of a heart monitor. It is a technological heartbeat that mirrors your own. The doctors confirmed what the police had hoped. The injuries were non-life-threatening. Each of the 9 people who had been part of the birthday celebration would see the sunrise. They would feel the transition from the dark hours of March 1st to the light of the following day. This is the judicial closure of the body. The trauma was being mapped, treated, and moved into the past. In the quiet hallways of the hospital, the music of Riverfront Live was a distant, fading memory. It was replaced by the soft footsteps of nurses and the hum of a building dedicated to the preservation of life. We can imagine the stillness of the recovery rooms, the way the moonlight filtered through the heavy glass windows, the way the city outside continued to breathe, unaware of the small miracles of healing taking place within those walls. The air in Cincinnati during the transition from February to March carries a specific kind of weight. It is a damp, cool humidity that clings to the brickwork of the city's older buildings. It settles over the Ohio River like a heavy velvet blanket. If you were to stand on the banks of the river at 1 o'clock in the morning, you would hear very little. Perhaps the distant hum of a barge moving slowly toward the locks, or the rhythmic lap of water against the silt-heavy shore. It is a time of night when the city's pulse slows down. The sharp edges of the day are softened by the mist. I know that you are tired. I know that the world can feel loud and demanding during the daylight hours. But here, in this space we have created, those demands do not exist. You are safe. You are comfortable. As we continue our journey, I want you to focus on your breathing. Imagine the cool air of the riverfront entering your lungs. As you exhale, feel the tension leaving your shoulders, your neck, and your hands. We have traveled to Kellogg Avenue. It is a stretch of road that follows the curve of the water. The trees are still bare from winter. The streetlights cast long, amber pools of light onto the asphalt. Tonight, we talked about a night that began with music and celebration. We talked about Riverfront Live. It is a venue that has seen thousands of faces and heard countless melodies. But more importantly, we talked about the resilience of those who were there. We talked about a young woman leaving a bathroom, unaware that her life was about to change. We talked about the sanctuary she found across the street. This is not a story of fear, but a story of how we find our way back to safety. The river keeps moving, the night keeps turning, and you are here, listening, drifting, and secure. Let the sounds of the night carry you as we move further into the silence. Angel Potts spoke to the media not with a voice of defeat, but with a voice of protective clarity. She questioned the security measures. She spoke of the $50 or $60 her daughter paid to enter. She mentioned the frisking and the pat-downs. These details are important because they remind us of the expectations of safety we carry. Her words serve as a pattern interrupt in our narrative. We look at the systems meant to protect us. She represents the companion effect. It is the feeling that someone is looking out for us, even when the safe containers of the world fail. Her daughter, 25 years old and recovering, is the living proof of that care. Angel's criticism is not meant to alarm us. It is meant to remind us that we have a right to be safe. We have a right to celebrate a birthday without the interruption of the outside world. As we listen to the echoes of her voice, we realize that the story of Riverfront Live is about more than an incident. It is about the bond between a mother and a child. It is about the expectation of peace. Angel's daughter jumped a fence and found a UDF, but she also found her way back to her mother's voice. In the end, the safe container is not a building or a fence. It is the people who wait for us at the hospital. It is the people who speak up for us when we are healing. The investigation into the events at 4343 Kellogg Avenue continues with silence and methodology. The Cincinnati police have processed the scene. They have reviewed the footage from the venue's cameras. They have spoken to the witnesses who saw the three men emerge from the shadows. While the names of the suspects remain in the archives of the department, the procedural loop is closing. The safe container of the city has been restored. Interim Chief Henney's assurance remains the final word. The public is no longer in danger. We return now to where we began, on the banks of the Ohio River. The night of March 1st has passed into history. The music at Riverfront Live has been silent for a long time now. If you were to drive past the venue tonight, you would see only the dark outline of the building against the sky. You would see the amber glow of the streetlights reflecting off the pavement. Across the street, the United Dairy Farmers store is still there. Its lights are a steady beacon for the late-night travelers. Its aisles are quiet and orderly. The 9 people who were injured are moving through their own quiet resolutions. They are healing, they are sleeping, and you too are invited to join that state of rest. The story is over. The information density has dropped to 0. There are no more facts to learn. There are no more timelines to follow. There is only the sound of your own breathing. There is the knowledge that you are secure in your own space. The river continues its slow, indifferent journey toward the sea. It carries with it the remnants of the day. Let the darkness wrap around you like a heavy blanket. You have listened, you have remembered, and now you can let go. Stay safe. Be at peace. Good night. Angel Potts stood before the cameras of Fox 19 with the quiet strength that only a parent in the aftermath of a crisis can truly possess. The morning air in Cincinnati was still damp with the remnants of the river mist, a cool humidity that seemed to weigh down the very words she spoke. She was not there to provide a sensational account or to seek the spotlight for herself. She was there to speak for her 25-year-old daughter, a young woman who had gone out for a night of celebration and returned as a survivor of a tragedy that should never have occurred. Angel's voice was steady, but it carried the sharp edge of a truth that many in the community were already beginning to feel. She spoke about the cost of entry, a detail that might seem mundane to some. But to her, it was the foundation of a broken promise. The venue had charged $50 or $60 for admission that night. To a young person looking to celebrate a friend's birthday, that sum is more than just a ticket price. It is an investment in an experience, It is a transaction that implies a certain level of care and professional oversight. Angel pointed out the irony of the situation with a clarity that resonated through the static of the news broadcast. Her daughter had been frisked. She had been patted down by security guards at the door. She had felt the clinical, impersonal touch of the staff and concluded that she was entering a space where the dangers of the outside world were strictly prohibited. The security ritual at a venue like Riverfront Live is designed to create a sense of absolute boundaries. Imagine the sensation of that moment at the entrance. The air is cold, and you are standing in a line of people, all of them radiating the same nervous energy of a night just beginning. You reach the front of the line and reach into your pocket, pulling out a $50 bill. The paper is crisp, smelling faintly of old ink and the many hands it has passed through. You hand it over, and in exchange, you receive a wristband or a stamp, a physical marker that you now belong to the interior world of the club. Then comes the pat-down. The security guard wears black tactical gloves, the fabric whispering against your jacket. You hear the high-pitched, rhythmic chirp of a metal detector wand as it passes over your shoulders, your waist, and your ankles. It is a sonic signal of safety. It tells your brain that everyone inside has undergone this same scrutiny. It tells you that the safe container is intact. Angel's daughter had moved through this process with a sense of relief. She believed that the $50 she had paid was a down payment on her own well-being. But as Angel told the reporters, that belief was shattered when 3 individuals found a way to bypass the perimeter. They had come from the rear of the venue, emerging from the shadows of the industrial riverfront, where the security guards and the metal detectors did not reach. We listen to Angel Potts because her voice acts as the ethical buffer of this story. She reminds us that the victims are not just numbers in a police report or names on a news ticker. They are daughters, friends, and members of a community that expects better from its institutions. Her frustration is a form of protective empathy. It validates the listener's own sense of justice. It is okay to feel that the world should be safer. It is okay to demand that the places where we celebrate life should be protected with the same intensity with which we live it. Her daughter's escape, the frantic run toward the door, the leap over the steel fence, and the dash toward the bright lights of the United Dairy Farmers store was a feat of survival. But it was a journey she should never have had to make. Angel's words serve as a reminder that the resilience of the human spirit is often forged in the failures of the systems meant to protect us. As we think about her daughter now, recovering and safe, we recognize the strength of the bond between them. The safe container was not the club. It was not the fence. It was the voice of a mother who refused to let the night end in silence. We hold on to this thought, letting the protective warmth of that love settle over us as the narrative begins its final, slow descent into the quiet of the Cincinnati night. The investigation into the events at 4343 Kellogg Avenue began long before the sun rose over the Ohio River. While the ambulances were still moving toward the hospitals, the procedural loop was already in motion. Police officers in dark uniforms moved through the empty venue, their flashlights cutting long, sharp paths through the lingering haze of the party. The music had been silenced. replaced by the crackle of police radios and the steady, rhythmic clicking of cameras documenting the scene. Interim Chief Adam Henney spoke to the public with the calm, monotone cadence of a man who understands the weight of his words. He assured the city that the shooting was an isolated incident. He stated that the public was no longer in danger. These phrases are the linguistic anchors of the legal system. They are designed to lower the collective heart rate of a city in shock. They signal that the disruption has been mapped and contained. The geography of the crime scene was cordoned off with yellow tape, creating a temporary safe container of evidence and observation. Investigators looked for the small physical remnants of the night, the spent shell casings, the discarded personal items, the patterns left behind in the dust of the floorboards. They spoke to the witnesses who had seen the three men emerge from the back of the club. They reviewed the digital footprints left on social media and the grainy footage from security cameras. The process was slow, methodical, and quiet. This is the phase of quiet resolution. While no names have been publicly released and no suspects have been paraded before the cameras, the work continues in the silence of the precinct. It is a world of paperwork, forensic analysis, and patient waiting. We can visualize the detectives sitting at their desks in the early hours of the morning. The only sound, the hum of the overhead lights and the soft tapping of keys. They are closing the loops of the story, one fact at a time. The 9 people who were injured are part of this resolution as well. They are no longer in the chaos of the hallway. They are in the restorative peace of the hospital. At the University of Cincinnati Medical Center and Good Samaritan, the environment is defined by order and care. The hallways are long and brightly lit, the floors polished to a mirror shine. In the rooms where the victims rest, the air is cool and still. The white sheets are pulled tight over the beds, smelling of clean linen and antiseptic. The heart monitors provide a steady technological pulse, a reassurance that the body is doing the work of healing. Each of the 9 survivors is moving away from the trauma of March 1st and toward a future that is once again defined by normalcy. They are sleeping now, their breathing synchronized with the quiet rhythm of the hospital, secure in the knowledge that the worst of the night is behind them. We return now to the banks of the Ohio River, where our journey began. The night has reached its deepest point, the hour when the city's pulse is at its lowest. If you were to stand on Kellogg Avenue right now, you would feel the immense silence of the industrial valley. The river is a dark, silken ribbon moving slowly toward the west, its surface occasionally broken by the soft lap of water against a pier or the distant, muffled thrum of a barge. In early March, the river often produces a heavy, clinging fog. It is a mist that dampens the sound of distant traffic and softens the harsh edges of the streetlights. This is the sonic void, a place where the world feels small and intimate. The venue at Riverfront Live stands as a dark silhouette against the gray sky, its fences and doors locked tight. Across the street, the United Dairy Farmers store remains a beacon of the mundane. The bright blue and yellow branding of the building glows softly in the mist, a lighthouse for those who find themselves awake in the quiet hours. Inside the store, the world is perfectly ordered. The aisles are long and straight, filled with the artifacts of everyday life. You can imagine the daughter of Angel Potts standing there in the moments after her escape, surrounded by the comforting presence of the familiar. On the shelves are rows of Grippo's potato chips in their iconic silver bags, reflecting the overhead fluorescent lights. There are stacks of white bread, their plastic wrappers crinkling softly if touched. In the refrigerated section, the milk jugs sit in neat rows, their surfaces covered in a fine veil of condensation. The hum of the refrigeration units is a constant, low-frequency drone, a sound that anchors the room in the present moment. The smell of the store is a mixture of fresh coffee and cold dairy, a clinical and clean scent that signals safety. To enter this space after the chaos of the club is to undergo a release mechanism. It is to move from the extraordinary back into the ordinary. The bright checkered floor of the UDF is a map of a world that still makes sense. Here, the only concerns are the price of a gallon of gasoline or the choice of a flavor of ice cream. We stay in this light for a moment, feeling the tension leave our own bodies as we visualize the order and simplicity of the scene. The story of the Riverfront live shooting is a story that has been told and processed. The facts have been gathered, the victims are healing, and the investigation is moving toward its inevitable conclusion. There are no more timelines to follow. There are no more details to uncover. The information density of the night has dropped to zero, leaving only the quiet atmosphere of the aftermath. You are in your own safe container now. Your room is dark, and the world outside your window is as still as the riverfront. The sounds of the day have faded away, replaced by the steady, rhythmic flow of your own breathing. You have listened to the account of a night that tilted on its axis, and you have seen how the people involved found their way back to the center. You have remembered the resilience of a 25-year-old woman and the protective voice of her mother. You have walked through the sanctuary of a convenience store and felt the cold mist of the Ohio River. Now, you are invited to let those images go. Imagine the river once more, its dark water moving with an indifferent, ancient grace. It carries with it the remnants of the day, washing away the noise and the friction of the waking world. The fog is thick and heavy, wrapping around the city like a velvet blanket, muffling every sound until there is only silence. The streetlights on Kellogg Avenue flicker and then settle into a steady amber glow, watching over the empty pavement. The UDF sign dims slightly as the night deepens, its work as a lighthouse finished for now. You are secure, you are comfortable, you are at peace. The darkness is not a void, but a soft, protective space where you can finally surrender to the weight of your own fatigue. The story is over. The narrative has reached its end. Let your thoughts drift like the mist over the water, moving slowly and without purpose until they dissolve into the shadows. Stay safe in the sanctuary you have created. Be at peace in the stillness of the night. The world will be there when you wake, but for now, there is only the rest you have earned. Good night.